Hi everyone, this is Jacob versus Chaz, played on the 23rd of February. Wow, this is a weird one. Let's go. E4, C5, okay, so we've got some sort of closed Sicilian Grand Prix attacky type opening here. I'm actually not sure of the openings. I've played enough of these as black over the years, but I've never actually bothered to learn the theory. I always figured you just play sensibly and you get into a decent position. So it looks like they're both playing theory at this point. D5, this is all theory. It's turned into some sort of weird French type thing. D3 was played, and now D4 is not book, but it's a move I actually think black should be playing in this situation. Black just gets an advanced center pawn, and I think black is at least equalized here. According to the openings book, G6 and Knight F6 are the two moves. I don't really like them, to be honest. I like D4. Okay, let's just play it. Knight B1, so knight's gone back, but that's perfectly fine, to be honest. I mean, you could play it to E2 and then look to play G3, Bishop G2, or just Knight B1. It's fine. I mean, the whole idea is you can play moves like A4 and then like the knight goes to A3 and then C4. And the idea is once this pawn on D4 has moved forward, it's opened up this hole on C4, and the knight would be lovely here, but you would need to play a move like A4 first just to stop your knight getting kicked away by B5. Okay, knight F6, yep. Knight BD2, yeah, well the knight can go to C4 either way from here or from A3. I'm not sure if playing this knight here straight away is best. I still, even with the... Yeah, I'd still like something like G3 and then Bishop G2, to be honest. And it's kind of a reverse King's Indian type of position. Okay, so knight BD2, Bishop E7, both players here. And A4, really good by Jacob here. Yep, he takes away B5 from black and makes C4 a pretty nice spot for the knight. So B6 was played. I'm not sure. It's hard to tell what black should be doing here. It looks like black wants to delay castling, and given that white has a pretty good pawn storm coming in, it's probably a wise decision. White has to deal with the fact that there might be checks along this diagonal, though, if he starts marching these pawns up the board. Leaving the king in the center for a bit longer does look okay to me. The question is, if he's leaving his king in the center, how should he play the position? And playing on the queen side makes a lot of sense. Maybe something like A6 and then rook B8 and then going for B5. The thing is, once this knight goes here and the pawn's on A6, you got to worry about a move like A5. Let me just go through this so I can show you what I mean. So like knight goes here, for instance, and if you were to play rook B8 straight away, you then have to face A5, and B5 is always going to be answered by taking en passant, and then this becomes a permanent outpost for the knight for the rest of the game. And that's the major issue here. And so a move like B6 ends up needing to be played anyway, just to stop A5, just so the rook can go here, and then eventually you can get B5 in without having to worry about your opponent fixing the pawns on fixing the hole in B6 like this. So a move like B6 often needs to be played anyway. Just playing it straight away, I'm not too sure about. Maybe it's okay. If that was all his intention, then well done to him. H3. So it looks like white is going for this idea of H3 G4, but this diagonal here really does worry me. And in fact, looking at the engine analysis, it just basically says black is a pawn and a half up now after H3, and immediately it wants to just move the knight, aiming for this hole and releasing the bishop, so the bishop can come in here. And the only way to sort of plug that hole is to play a horrible move like H4, but that just allows the knight to take this pawn. So, and if knight were to move to C4, then suddenly you've got this bishop H4 check, and yeah, black's doing incredibly well here with knights jumping into G3, for instance. So yeah, this is actually a blunder, and I think G3 is needed first. You've got to play G3 before playing H3, just so there's no hole in G3 and you can slowly advance these pawns up. But I mean, it's probably better just to go Bishop G2 and then castle first, and then start the pawn storm on the king side. It's more like a normal King's Indian defense reversed. So yeah, H3 is actually a blunder. Black did not take advantage of it. Black played Bishop A6. I'm not sure what the bishop's doing out here. I mean, maybe the plan is if the knight ever jumps here to just rip the knight off straight away. But seriously, if you know, given that he's missed this idea of knight H5, maybe something like A6 is the way to go, and then slowly play Rook B8 and then B5. You will be giving your opponent the A file, but once you've got pawns on B5 and C5 next to each other, then you can start looking to go C4. At some point, Black is going to have to castle though, so the other rook can come into the action, and maybe onto the C file and start pushing this queenside storm. So Bishop A6, I think, is actually in the way. I think it's actually counter to what Black's trying to do here. This bishop has no future for the rest of the game. So G4, looks like White's gotten away with his little blunder and playing H6. It still likes Black's, the engine still likes Black's position here. And, you know, suggesting a move like knight d7, for instance, releasing the bishop. Just a simple queen c7 is annoying because it threatens just to take this pawn. So queen c7, what was played. And now this pawn is en prise. And White has to deal with this problem. So, I mean, you know, e5 comes to mind. The problem with e5 is you're letting the knight into d5 straight away. And this e3 square is a bit of a pain to have to deal with. And knight c4 is a bit of a problem because you got to worry about this bishop maybe ripping the knight off and wrecking your pawn structure. That probably wouldn't be too bad, actually. I think because the pawn on here actually takes that d5 square away from the knight and the bishop defends e3. So maybe e5 is playable here. What was played was knight back to b1. This knight has wasted so much time this game. It went to c3, back to b1, to d2, back to b1 again. Oh, that's painful. And look at all White's. The only developed piece of White is this. The lack of development isn't a major problem because the center is closed. So White does have time to sort out this development. And Black has put his pieces on squares which run counter to allowing the position to open up. I mean, this a6, b5, c4 idea is the way to open the position safely. And putting the bishop on a6 has slowed Black down. It's a case of developing to a square which actually loses you time. Something you've got to be very careful about in closed positions is where you put your pieces is more important than getting them out. If this was an open center, Black would be winning absolutely easily, just because he's got everything developed. Okay, let's move on. b5. Okay, so he's trying to open the position up, which is the right idea, especially with your opponent undeveloped like this. Taking is pretty much forced. Well, not forced, but it's good because yeah, now you've got the c4 hole. So knight a3, there was no hesitation there. You just played knight h3, a3, sorry, and it's eyeing this hole here. Maybe the plan is now to bring this knight to here and jump to there, but you got to worry about the defense's f pawn. So there's a few tricky things there that White has to worry about. Black decided to play rook b8 to defend the bishop. Yeah, I mean the bishop probably can just jump back to a6. Because there's no good discovered attacks of the knight with a rook onto the bishop. I'm not sure where this bishop actually wants to be. Maybe rook b8 is a good idea. You can't really trust the engine's analysis too much in a position like this. The engines don't understand block positions as well as they understand open positions. So you know, it's not a move that the engine really liked. But you know, the engine wants to do this, which, yeah, it doesn't seem to make that much sense. I think rook b8 is a good idea. Knight took. Does it really want to take? It probably does. This bishop is not a very good piece, but it might become one later on, I guess, once c4 finally gets played a million years from now. Okay, let's just get into it. Takes. I mean, there's nothing wrong with what White's done, swapping off like that, and this rook is very strong on the a file now with the knight out of the way. Bishop e2. The bishop probably has more of a future on g2, to be honest, because that opens up the possibility of e5 with the bishop coming along this diagonal. There's nothing wrong with e2 though. h6. Not sure what the point of playing h6 was. I can't really see the reason for that move. It looks like he's trying to keep out a knight from g5, but I'm not sure why you'd want to do that. In this situation, maybe just castling. You know, keep your pawns in the most flexible situations, in the most flexible positions, flat like this. I mean, it looks a bit silly castling straight into this pawn storm like this, but it does bring the rook into the game, and you probably should. You know, the idea is you got to try and get this c4 advance in. You know, so just quickly go rook c8, knight a5, and then bang c4, something along those lines. Except try and find a safe way to do it. Yeah, h6 is a bit strange looking to me anyway. I don't see what the move actually does. Okay, rook f1. Oh, come on, guys, castle. Just castle. What are you both afraid of? It's yeah, the uncastled kings are going to cause you more problem than having a castled king. Just castle here. You're going to want your king here. It's much better, better place than sitting on e1. And then your f pawn can charge up. You know, well, not yet. I mean, you can look at something like king g2 to cover the g3 square. Then you can start looking at playing f5, or maybe e5 first, and then following up with f5. Rook f1. That's just now that there's this constant worry that a queen is going to jump into g3, and you are introducing. I was about to say you are introducing the idea of g5, but that existed a move ago, didn't it? Maybe that was Black's whole plan. Play g5, and then the queen can jump into g3. Does castling fix this? Oh, whoops, not here. Is this still an issue? It probably is. I mean, if you play f5, the queen jumps into here, check. The grab's here, check, and there's a problem. But can you just ignore that? You probably can just ignore it. Play something like king g2 here. Yeah, okay, it's a bit tricky. Quite a funny thing is that the engine's suggesting this and just giving up the piece, because at the end of it all, you go here with discovered attack on the queen and grabbing this rook here. Whoops. And the queen's on pre. And the engine's suggesting some very strange stuff, like knight h5 here. This is just fascinating. Just giving up the queen, and the idea is, after all this, what's the material? It's queen versus bishop, knight, and rook. Yeah, interesting, fascinating stuff. Okay, let's get back to the actual game. Rook f1 was played. A5. What's the plan here with a5? Or is that just get it extra defended so the knight and the queen can go wandering without having to worry about this rook coming down in? That might have just simply been it. Still want a castle. Just castle. Or is castling bad now or something? Maybe it is. Maybe rook g1 is actually an issue now with a g-pawn hack, mainly because this weakness was created by h6. While the pawn was back here, you didn't really have to worry about getting g-pawn hacked. So maybe castling is bad here. Oh, this is just a weird position. Okay, a5, knight d2. These knights are just nuts. Okay, but this is heading straight for this weak c4 square, so I do like this maneuver, knight to d2. King d7. Well, I guess, I mean, it frees up the rook. The knight's just going to sit on c4 though, which it is, and I do like white's position now. There's still a major problem of this queen jumping into g3, you know, g5, queen g3. This king is so uncomfortably placed. This king is as well. This is just This is just weird. So yeah, g5 is the move suggested by the engine, and it's, you know, the whole idea is if you try and take, then you know, there's queen g3 check coming in, which is pretty cool. And there's also the idea of taking here and the rook coming down to h3. So g5 is now a problem to have to deal with. Was that a problem last move? You know, well, probably, maybe. Yeah, I mean, the bishop and the rook now defend f4, so it's not too big an issue. Okay, where are we? Knight d2, king d7, knight c4, rook a8. And now, yeah, the engine is suggesting moves like h4 and bishop f3 and rook g1, and it actually thinks that white is 2 points of material up. Like I said, you can't really fully trust an engine in a position like this where it's all blocked up. So I'm not sure where these numbers are coming from exactly. This bishop is just useless, just trapped in by white pawns. This bishop's undeveloped, and it can't really develop anytime soon because of the pressure on b2. I guess the knight's got it defended, doesn't it? I just assume this knight's getting swapped off soon. I move like knight e8 and then knight d6 and just trade this thing off, and then this pawn's under danger again. And if this pawn ever goes to b3, then you've got this a4 maneuver, which opens up, well, all the lines on the queen side. And once these lines on the queen side open, this king is going to start to look shaky. Okay, let's get into it. g5. Okay, I mean, it just lets the queen straight into g3. H takes g5. And yeah, how does white deal with this? I mean, rook f2 is forced. Quite a fascinating line here. If the king had tried to go to d2, knight e4 check leads to a forced mate. Because after takes, you've got bishop takes here check. Because the whole idea of moving the knight is it's a line clearance sacrifice, clearing the line for the bishop to just jump into here. So after takes, bishop takes g5, it's all over. You know, you start sacking pieces and getting him in the way like this, and just sacking everything. The king will eventually come out here, and you've got a brilliant little, beautiful checkmate. So obviously rook f2 is forced, and now, even now, the engine still likes white's position more than black's, which is very strange. Knight e8 was played. The rook obviously can't take on f7 because it's pinned. Yeah, bishop g4 is good. I mean, it just lets the queen out anyway, just so the queen can try and trade for this queen. And now, yeah, knight d6 is probably the best move here. Everything else, according to the engine, is not that good for black. f6 was played, and the engine seems to think this is just great for white. And because of f4, forcing queen h4, and then queen f3 and king f1 are the two moves here. Yeah, so it says that white is 2.5 pawns up. It's hard to see why, to be honest. I mean, white's got a lot of pressure here. He's got the knight and the bishops in brilliant positions. This bishop's amazing. Maybe he's just got incredibly well-placed pieces. I can't see anything concrete, though. So, you know, rook a6 is one of the moves the engine is suggesting here. It's a weird position. What is happening? I don't... The engine's giving me some strange numbers, and it's just a strange position. There's no concrete win here. I can't see a way to win a piece. Unless I'm absolutely blind, I can't see why the engine thinks that white is winning by so much. It looks like black can slowly find a way to unravel this position by getting everything out of the way, moving the knight. The rook will be defending this, maybe getting the knight to here at some point and trading some pieces off. It looks like black can just slowly unwind this mess, but according to the engine, he can't. I'm just going to move on because we're at the 20-minute mark. I get through this. Okay, so G takes f6 was played, and the engine did not like that. It now says it's equal, or well, white's only got a slight advantage. Whereas queen f3, white has a huge advantage apparently. G takes f6, G takes f6. Oh, it didn't like that either. It wants to play knight f6. Honestly, I'd have to sit here and analyze this for a good 20 minutes, half an hour, in order to wrap my head around exactly why the position is bad for black. On the surface, it looks like black can get out of this. See, I mean, taking with a pawn just looks natural. Looks okay to me. You keep your pawns together. I mean, white's got this passed H pawn, but it does look like black can play knight d6 and just trade off a bunch of pieces, and then this rook can swing over to here, and this pin is still here. So I'm not entirely sure why the engine's giving me these numbers. Let's actually see what happened. King f1, knight d6. Yeah, trading a bunch of pieces off, and apparently here white missed e5. Apparently that's really good for white. It's hard to understand why. Okay, maybe we just look through a few variations and see. So knight takes here. Apparently that's answered by d takes. And after the rook moves, then this is a thing apparently. Where's the tactic? Where's the threat? It says white is 6 points of material up. Why? Has my engine malfunctioned? What's going on? So it likes queen takes. That looks like it runs into tactics like bishop out to c7 or something like that. But according to the engine, queen f3 is the move which gives white enormous advantage here. And it's still very hard to see why. I mean, why can't rook f8? Oh, queen f... Look at this. Check. It has sneaky moves. This stuff is so hard to find. But even then, after the king moves to c8, you give up this pawn, do you? Is that the idea? Okay, so queen f3 with a threat of queen d5. What if the king just gets out of that threat? Or is there no way to do that? There might not be a way to do that. Is that the whole combination? Is that the whole thing? What if the bishop takes on f6? So queen f3 now, threatening to jump into d5. So it looks like the engine's entire understanding of this position is based on some idea of playing e5, queen f3, queen d5. And apparently that maneuver is so powerful it's virtually impossible to stop, and that's why the engine loves white's position. Wow. Okay. So in the game, instead of playing e5, which is admittedly a very hard move to make, and there's a lot of variations to analyze, like what if he takes with the pawn, for instance? After knight takes here, knight takes there, where's white's great advantage once again? It doesn't look like white has a huge advantage. Looks like black is fine. Black can even try and nick this pawn if he wants to. Apparently, white is still 2.5 points up, even though materially he's actually a pawn down. So, yeah, it's just fascinating what's going on here. Like I said, this is just strange. Okay, I'm not going to waste any more time on this. Maybe just out of my own personal curiosity, I might sit down with this position on the board and sink half an hour of analysis into it. But yeah, strange stuff. The players can obviously be forgiven for missing all these crazy ideas, because it's just very hard to find. Okay, so white decided to just trade off this bishop. From a positional point of view, I wouldn't want to trade this bishop off. All your pawns, apart from that one, are on white squares, and this is just your best piece, this bishop. Yeah, and moves like this can't be played because of the pin. Whoops. So, yeah. On the other hand, trading off the bishop and leaving your knight on the board, it does have a certain appeal to it, because, you think, oh, there's no knight that can, your knight on c4 just looks like an amazing piece. The problem is that black has a way to challenge that knight as well. So eventually, this knight is going to have to trade off or run for it or something. So I'd probably be looking at something like, knight takes instead. That's still going to result in your bishop being traded off, isn't it? Well, I mean, what else can you do? I mean, apart from e5, obviously. The other move the engine loves here is c3, apparently. Like, what? Okay, the rook defends b2. Oh, everything's just locked up. The rook defends b2 at least. I mean, you're not seriously going to take this pawn, are you? Interesting. Okay, so what was played was bishop takes, and then queen f3 was played. However, black now has a iron grip on the e5 square. So black played rook f8, getting the rook off that line, getting behind this pawn here, protecting the f pawn. Now, there's ideas like f5 might become a thing at some point very soon. Yeah, also the idea of maybe chucking a knight into here, and you can take back with the pawn if you want to. Taking back with the bishop obviously looks much better though. Okay, king g2 was played. Knight e5, that just pretty much forces, it doesn't force the trade-off. You could, according to the engine, queen f4 is the best move. Walking straight into this. And the reason is because of this sacrifice here. What is happening? Okay, king here. Yeah, because of queen takes here. Okay, so this is hilarious. It's something only an engine really well, you can find these moves in a long time in a game, I guess. Not something you can find in just 5 minutes. You intentionally put your queen into the line of enemy bishop, giving your opponent a discovered attack because you can answer the discovered attack with a discovered attack on your own, grabbing the enemy queen at the end. Pretty cool tactics. I like this stuff. Bang, bang. So queen f4 is the best move. It just looks visually wrong. White can be forgiven for not playing that or not even considering it. I didn't think about it until I saw the engine suggest it. So he took with the bishop. F takes e5 is considered a little bit better by the engine, but I don't know why. I mean, we've now just got an opposite color bishop ending, and these pawns are crippled, and this is a passed pawn. Looks okay for white. Maybe the point is this b pawn is en prise. You take like this, the queen has to move, and then this rook ends up grabbing this at the end of it all. But then this rook grabs this at the end of it all, so I don't actually know what the engine's going on about. Bishop takes seems quite sensible to me. Now you've got opposite colored bishops here, which means you've probably got a dead drawn ending. Well, you've definitely got a dead drawn ending. But it's important to note when you've got opposite colored bishop sort of middle game, the player with the attack has the advantage, because having opposite colored bishops kind of gives you an extra piece to attack with. This bishop here can't be challenged, and this bishop here can't be challenged. So I think that gives black, the advantage in this position. Just ignore the engine analysis. I think black is definitely got white under pressure here, and white doesn't have any pressure on black at all. So I think only black can win from here. Let's see, b3, yeah, let's save the pawn. Queen g5, it's hard to work out how black's going to make this work, but obviously some sort of big smash, f5 smash is the way to do it. But it's going to require a complete rearrangement of the position. I don't know how this little pawn is going to get defended. Maybe the king needs to I don't know, run over to here or something, which allows the rook to come back, and then the two rooks line up here, and then maybe you can smash through with f5. There's a lot of maybes, but that's the sort of plan you need to think about. Or maybe this bishop can drop back to c7 to defend this, and the king gets off this pin here, and then the rooks start heading over to here and try and crash through with f5. But anyway, well, black's going to win this is with some sort of f5 smash. I don't see any other breakthroughs here that are quite possible. And if this is not a possible sort of plan, if it's just can't be done, which is quite possibly true, you just can't do it, then it's just going to be drawn. So let's say queen g5, queen e2, queen e3, offering a swap off of queens. Yeah, I mean, it's not really offering a swap of queens. There's no way white can take it because of the pawn taking with discovered attack on the rook. It's a sneaky little trick. White played rook e1. Rook a4 looks like the sort of thing. I don't know. You've got to worry about the queen coming in here, I guess. I guess he just wanted his rook over here, to help the king out. But rook a4 looks interesting. I like the idea of trying to eventually double your rooks on the a pawn. This is an isolated pawn. It's a weakness for black to deal with, and this is an outpost. So, yeah, getting the rooks here and here look very strong to me. Ideally, this king finds some miracle way to end up in here, but yeah, that's not going to happen. Okay, so queen e3, sneaky tactic. Rook e1. White did not fall for that. Queen g3 check. King f1. It's looking very difficult. But with the rook gone off the a file, maybe black can take this opportunity to quickly get the rook back to here and swing it over to here. So king d6 was played, getting the king off here. Yeah, fair enough. Queen f3, saying, trying to swap queens. It still doesn't actually threaten to swap queens because the bishop takes with a skewer on the two rooks. So queen f3 doesn't actually threaten anything. The rook b7 was played, yeah, getting the rook over. So black is actually getting the pieces over and using some sneaky tactics to stop queen exchanges. Rook g2, hitting the queen. Queen dropped out to f4. Is a queen swap possible now? Now it is, and probably white should just go for it, because once the queens are off the board, we've just got this opposite color bishop ending, and now there's no chance this king's getting checkmated. It's just dead drawn. Yeah, there's just no way either player can win here. Maybe white was playing for a win. I don't know. Rook e2. I can't say I like this idea. I really do think trading queens is the way to go. And you're weakening your entire back line. So a4, for instance, with the idea of the rook sneaking in down here could be a problem for white to deal with. At the moment, it doesn't look like it is, but it's just annoying. More than likely, you save that check for the right moment, and just get the queen out of here somewhere. I know it is tricky, but if you can find some way to use this diagonal. Use this file. Maybe the other rook can reroute its way over to here and grab this pawn, and then these two rooks can harass the c pawn from behind. So a few options there. a4 is interesting. Okay, rook e2. Rook h7 was played. What's the rook doing there? I'm trying to understand the idea, the plan behind this move. It's not sacrificing. There's no sacrifice here. I don't know what future the rook has on this line. I think it was actually better where it was. Yeah, I mean a4. The engine, as I leave it on the engine, it's liking a4 more and more. Rook h7, I don't like. Okay, rook gf2. And now black swaps the queens off. That's basically just taking a draw, swapping the queens off. Was there no potential to maybe play queen g5 and just keep the queens on the board? White's the one under pressure here. Black's under no pressure at all, unless white does gets his rooks over to the back over to the a file where they probably should be. There's no pressure on black at all. Black can just keep the queens on the board and just slightly put white under pressure. At this point, I actually don't know what's happening on the clocks either, so maybe black has got less time on the clock and he's just decided he doesn't have the time to try and work out a win here. But after queen takes, rook takes, it's just dead drawn. And after the rook moved to f7, both players agree to draw, which is fair enough considering the opposite color bishops. Neither player is going to be able to make any progress here. Okay, so that was a weird game. Very, very strange. Very weird. Yes, and it's almost 35 minutes video. I hope you all enjoyed that, and some of you might want to go back over some of these middle game positions and try and really wrap your head around what's happening in here. It's just weirdness galore. I probably will look at this myself because it's just probably a good opportunity to learn a few things. Okay, hope you all enjoyed that and learned something, and goodbye.